Hi, and welcome back. I'm John Dawson. I used to think that when I retired, time would feel light, like stepping onto a beach with no obligations, no meetings, no deadlines, just open air. But what I didn't expect was this: time doesn't feel lighter, it just feels heavier. Not in a stressful way, in a sacred way. I remember one of my first truly wide open mornings in retirement. I woke up like I always had, early, no alarm, just habit. I laid there for a moment and realized something unusual. There was nothing pressing. There was no sprint review, no one-on-one, no flight to catch, no team waiting for direction, just space. And that space didn't feel immediately relaxing. It felt weighty. Because suddenly, there were 1,000 possible directions I could go. I could organize my workbench. It had been cluttered for years and it needed a full reset. I could start planning our next trip. There were several countries still that needed to be mapped out and coordinated. I had volunteer work for a church that needed attention. There were family matters to attend to. The yard needed mowing again. I still had to hire a contractor to repair the house generator. I could reorganize my truck. I was in the process of building an ultralight backpacking setup. I was thinking about launching a publishing company and needed to handle the legal paperwork. I had book ideas to outline. Or I could just go play another round of disc golf. None of those were wrong, but that was the problem. When you're working, the top priority is always decided for you. But when you retire, you get to be the prioritization engine. And that's heavier than I expected. There have been days where I drift. I'll sit down at my desk out of just muscle memory. I still have the same ultra-wide monitor, the same efficient workstation from my corporate years. It's optimized. It's fast. It's clean. Well, too optimized. I tell myself I'm going to research something productive. Then next thing you know, I spent 2 hours overanalyzing some future project, building another spreadsheet that I may never use. It's subtle. It feels like productivity, but sometimes it's just drift. And when I look up from the screen, I have this quiet thought: is this worthy of the freedom I've worked so hard to build? That's new. When I was employed, I didn't carry that question. I just executed. I delivered. I moved to the next sprint. Now, there's no sprint board. Although, if I'm honest, I actually have tried to recreate one. You see, in the corporate world, we worked in 2-week sprints, agile methodology. Prioritize backlogs, capacity planning, burn down charts. I still think that way. And sometimes I catch myself organizing retirement like it's a product roadmap. What are the top 5 priorities for this quarter? What fits inside this life sprint? What delivers the most value? It's almost comical. Even in retirement, I'm building systems. But here's the difference. In corporate life, the roadmap was handed down. Now, the roadmap is mine. And when the roadmap is yours, the responsibility hits differently. Travel is where I feel the contrast most clearly. When I was still working remotely, my wife and I could, and we would still we could prioritize travel, but it was calculated. There was always a time zone math problem running in my head. Like, how far from headquarters can we go without destroying my sleep? What countries are off limit because the time zone shift would force me into middle of the night meetings? How much exploration can I squeeze in between lunch or dinner breaks? And there were just parts of the world we simply couldn't touch. Not because we lacked the courage, but because I lacked that flexibility. Now, there's no time zone math. If we want to go somewhere on the other side of the globe, we go. Not context switching between adventure and Zoom calls. There's no hiding in a hotel room at midnight trying to stay alert while the rest of the world sleeps. That freedom, it's incredible. But it also sharpens the sense that this time matters. When I look at my calendar now, it's mostly blank. And every time I think about that, I hear this quiet phrase. You asked for it. It's liberating, but it's also intimidating. Because now, there's no excuse. If I waste a day, that's on me. But if I invest it well, that's on me too. And the older I get, the more intense that awareness becomes. When I look at my parents aging, when I hear about friends my age who have passed unexpectedly, when I feel the occasional ache in my back from years of sitting, it reinforces something that I can't ignore. Time is finite. There isn't a single day where tomorrow feels like a promise. That reality doesn't make me anxious. It makes me intentional. And that's why my wife and I set aggressive travel goals. 100 countries, 7 continents. Not because we're chasing bragging rights, because we want to be able to look back and say we didn't drift through the season. We lived it. Retirement didn't turn out to be a permanent vacation after all. It turned out to be stewardship. It's like being handed a finite treasure and being told, use this well. And that's heavier than I expected. But it's also richer than I imagined. Freedom isn't floating. Freedom is ownership. And ownership changes how you see every single hour. If this resonates, I'd love to hear how you think about it in your season of life. And if you're enjoying these conversations, consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for being here. I'm so glad you stopped by for John Dawson Retirement.